What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hurt Business Podcast. My name is Faris Sharari, and in today's episode, we got a whole lot of topics. Leaving last weekend, the biggest topic in the MMA world has been the throwing fights, this gambling investigation that underway surrounding Isaac Dulgarian. So we'll talk that, the eye poke that happened in the co-main event, and then we'll talk Steve Garcia's beautiful performance a little. And then we'll at the very end, I want to dabble in some topics that took place this week in the world of combat. One of my favorites was the exchange between Francis Ngannou and one of the most annoying people in the world of combat, and that is Jake Paul, in their whole going back and forth with Gervonta pulling out. And yeah, I'll share my thoughts on that towards the end. Timestamps below if you're not interested in anything and just kind of want to browse around. More than welcome to do that. And also, quick disclaimer before I get into everything. I understand people usually click on these types of videos and pods and listen for the first few minutes and kind of just gauge, just to gauge and carry on, which respect, please do. But just know that this is just for goofs and giggles. This isn't like an Ariel Hawani, like facts kind of show. This is more so like a silly, laid back, I'm going to talk some shit, and I hope you enjoy it. So with that, let's get into some stuff because boy, oh boy, was there some fun headlines going around this week, and none bigger than, of course, the Isaac Dulgarian throne fight. And yeah, let's kind of just jump right into it. The fight itself, watching it live, the only thing that kind of caught me most off guard was Daniel Cormier's commentary. And usually I'm very critical on DC, but this time around, spot on. He was obviously just like kind of pointing out the mistakes Isaac was making during a lot of those transitions and how he was making the wrong moves and therefore resulting in him being in horrible spots, not defending his neck, instead throwing strikes off his back, and then he got his back fully taken and then continued taking that approach on trying to land ground and pound whenever like your neck is being taken. The dude he fought, Yadier Del Valle, who was undefeated, also a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a talented who just recently got into the UFC. I believe he fought my boy Conor Matz, his first UFC go, which he looked good in that one. But yeah, it didn't seem like out of the ordinary as a viewer. I know Dulgarian was obviously 2-1, I believe, going into this one in the UFC. He had a lot more hype. Now watching everything going on, apparently there's stories where he's choking out and getting the best of a lot of like really high names and ranked guys in these really tough divisions. So with all that, and then he gets smoked like that in the first round, I could see the suspicions, right? From a guy being as talented as that to get smoked by a guy who really nobody knows about respectfully. Yeah, he's undefeated. On paper, he looks wicked tough, but this is a challenge that you would think, if you know the full story, you know who Isaac Dulgarian is, you would think this is something he passes with flying colors, that this is a first round submission, yet the other way. But no. One of the craziest things for me was the UFC was made aware that the line got swayed so much, indicating that somebody came in with a bunch of money. And it's since been released by a good friend of the pod, Harry Mack, on IG. He disclosed that there was $16 million that made this line move that much, and that's an insane amount of money, insane amount of bread to throw on an Apex card, main card fight. Yeah, but it's not the main event nor the co-main event, nor does it have anybody in it that really moves the needle for anybody. So with all that being known, 16 million, one of the main things that I left out, like, what the fuck, why not go for like a couple 100,000, so that way you don't look too hard. I understand maybe a lot of people got greedy and a lot of people try to get there, like a lot of chefs in the kitchen, perhaps. But it was just 16 million feels like an outrageous number. It just seems like a lot of money to be to be thrown on such a low level fight. Nobody was really paying attention to this aside from the diehards, yet that much money was thrown on this fight. That alone is insane. But the UFC was made aware of all this. Apparently, Dana came out in a TMZ interview and said that they called Dulgarian and his lawyer, which I'm like, what the lawyer know? Like, the lawyer just in the background, like, hey, what you want me to say? And needless to say, if I'm Isaac and I'm doing this shady stuff, I'm definitely not telling my lawyer, right? You wanna fly as under the radar as possible. So that was a little strange to me, but why wouldn't the UFC pull the fight if something like this was even remotely considered? Thinking about how much of a story this has developed out to be, and I feel like it could be a million times bigger as well. It doesn't feel like it's getting the global recognition. Like ESPN isn't really covering it, and big platforms aren't really talking about this massive gambling scandal that's going on currently, and that's problematic. There's definitely some issues in that because the NBA has one going on currently with Terry Rozier and the whole ankle thing, and Chauncey Billups as a coach, and there's a lot going on. And now here's another one, and the FBI is now involved, and Cash Patel. It seems like an insane thing to be involved in. We still want the list, Cash, but I guess more on your plate. Still release the list. But since this fight, Dulgarian has been released. He is no longer employed. And I even seen that he didn't get paid. So imagine that. A guy who, like, if this all comes out to be true, was looking for a payday and ends up getting none from his day job. None. I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth it, because not only are you now unemployed, but in the event that this comes out as false and you're not guilty of this, we're forever going to know you as this guy, unfortunately. And in the event that you are guilty of this, nobody's ever going to hire you for any fights, man. Come on. This is horrible. This is horrible stuff. And since this, the ball's kind of rolling, and this is kind of turning into another story where fighters are coming out and saying, I've been kind of approached and poached and offered X amount of money to throw fights. And some UFC guys are making jokes. I guess they're kind of like saying that they were involved and then saying LOL, JK, 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 which this investigation is only now beginning for this story. I know there's been one a few years ago with the James Curse. This is only the beginning. This is going to turn into a humongous story where if you're just making jokes on Twitter, these LOLs, and I delete the tweet, sorry, but the tweet still is out there and they will find it. And guess who they will be calling for an interview? Mr. JK LOL. Throwing fights is crazy and horrible, and it kind of is a testament of how much these guys are getting paid and how much more they should be getting paid. I understand they're lower level fighters and they need to earn their way to these big bucks, but at the same time, they shouldn't even consider this. And most guys aren't, right? Because their ego and their pride, and respect to those guys. Those are the true warriors right there. Ultimately, a guy needs to feed their family, and if the UFC isn't cutting the check, they got to explore elsewhere. And it may come with jobs that are looked more down upon, like this one, a thrown fight. Arguably, probably the worst thing you could do as a fighter. It's all just shitty and scammy. This is coming out in the UFC, and they feel like to have somewhat of a grasp on all this. Versus if they went across the street to boxing, it feels like this would be everywhere. Boxing historically is way more corrupt than anything we've ever seen. Promoters, this person, this fighter wanted more, and this and that. Isaac Dulgarian, his coach, came out, and obviously he has no relations to this, but he's praying that his fighter comes out not guilty in this. But I just feel like how with all the facts, with everything considered, with the turnout, with the money that was down on this fight, with the line moving as much as it did. And it sucks for Coach because he runs a respectable gym, Mr. Mark Montoya. He runs a great gym in Denver. They have a lot of ranked guys. They have a lot of guys who are on win streaks. They do a lot of good work. David, it didn't go in David Onama's way, but he was on a few fight win streak prior to this. Yusuf Zalal's another one who's on the team, and the list kind of goes on. But what's in the water in Denver? I feel like these stories, these situations always kind of. And granted, there's great MMA that happens there. Corey Sandhagen trains out there. Mark Montoya, I just listed two other guys that he has. There's a handful of quality fighters, but also this kind of feels like where it also the heart of this kind of always happens. And last time it was with the James Curse, in the Elkin fight, and yeah, that's a little bit of a different story because this is a coach who's betting on fights actively, and this is a coach who has knowledge of his fighters and their condition and their health. And so if he knows his guy is hurt, what are the chances he's going to win against a guy who's fully healthy with the level of injury that he did go in to that fight with? And yeah, that for me, that's horrible. This, if it's true for Isaac, horrible. We want to keep the credibility of the sport as high as possible. We want the best winning always. Yeah, there could be a bad day in the office. There could be a slip up, but it should never, ever, ever in a gazillion million years be a fighter going in there within his brain knowing he has to lose this fight in the first round, ideally by submission, and go in there and do that is horrible. And I hope if he is guilty, I hope that comes out sooner rather than later. And we continue kind of calling this stuff out. Again, we just want the best fighting the best, and the outcome of those fights just being the best fighter, and not who a person wants to win just because they're going to bet $16 million on the other way. It's horrible. It's horrible. So let's not throw fights. And instead, let's poke people in the eye. What's up with this Ante Dalia guy? I wouldn't want to be him either. Just a whirlwind of events for him. Just a roller coaster from 1 minute going from I just knocked this clown out to they're looking at footage and this guy's covering his eye and doctors are coming in and the ref isn't saying it's fully over, but I just let out all my energy and screaming and celebrating with my coaches, and I won this fight. No, not according to the ref, pal. And watching it live, you don't see the shot that hurts him, and you don't see the eye poke blatantly. You just see him kind of cover up, and Ante just get on the offense and throw a bunch of strikes. And visually, it looked like a KO. On the feet, it looked like a good stoppage at first. Heavyweights, they hit hard, they crack. A guy's shelling up. There's a problem. One guy celebrates, the other guy is screaming in agony. Great sell on Waldo's part. He sold it beautifully. I was all in firsthand for knowing Dominicans are pretty dramatic, and I love that. He was screaming, he was selling in my fucking eye, and he was showing the refs. And the one thing he didn't say though was I can't see. There wasn't a single moment or a single I can't see. He just kept repeating, he poked me on my fucking eye. He poked me on my fucking eye. And it was strange because in a situation like that, you would think, like the Tom Aspinall fight, it got stopped. No contest, disqualified, like anything. It just no chance they restart this fight. Yet that's exactly what happened. The ref was like, it's not over yet. And then like the third exchange, 12 seconds in, Waldo cracks him with an overhand. Good night. And the second it happened, I felt so good for Waldo. You know, shout out the Dominicans. If I'm Ante or his team, just earlier this week, I wrote down a few of these quotes because I'm like, how can you go from saying this to doing that? And this is how it turns out. It's kind of the MMA gods just being like, humble yourself, pal. Humble. He's obviously Tom Aspinall's one of his training partners, teammates, and they obviously what happened with Tom in the last pay-per-view with the eye poke and the stoppage. Ante was in the pre-fight conference this week talking about in 33 fights, I never eye poke nobody. There should be a punishment served to those who do. And I'm like, to say that, to then eye poke and think you won by a KO, except you eye poked. A weird thing with the ref, which is a whole nother discussion. Like, there's been a whole lot of strange ref sequences as of recently, and this could tie into some gambling. I don't know, some more controversies. But the ref continued the fight, and I just couldn't help but think, if I'm Ante, I'm furious. I'm furious, not just because of the words I said this week, but because of that's my outcome. I was faster than him. I was 30 pounds less than him. I was killing him till I wasn't. And shout out Waldo Costa, man. And then he calls out the champion. He said, look at my fucking eye and look what I did to your boy. And that was cold. That was cold. To say, I not only did I take what you, and yeah, not all eye pokes are created equal. Yes, but I got eye poked. You got eye poked. I continued and finished him. And you got on your horse. And Waldo, I think, was 6 going into this fight. So maybe he moves up the ladder a tiny bit. Ante was behind him, so I don't imagine he'll move up a bunch. But for a division that needs fun characters and guys to kind of, challenge the champion, I'm in on Waldo. I'm in. Not only because he's Dominican, but because he can do stuff like that. He can get poked, face controversy, and then come back and win. And you see his eye is fully red. And again, a little bit of an acting job on his part, a little dramatic, but it was perfect. It sold everybody. It got the ref to restart the fight, and he won the way he imagined in a perfect world. I guess in a perfect world, he would have had 2 eyes, but again, he won by KO, and that's a great night in the office. So congrats, Waldo. Big things coming up for you, Papi. So we'll see how that plays out for him. The main event, Steve Garcia, David Onama. What a fight. What a fight for Steve Garcia, man. He's a contender in this division, and he's pretty good. He's fun stylistically to watch. In this one, David Onama is not a guy who's going to shoot for a takedown, and I think for that, it kind of shines Garcia. He's a guy who he's going to march you down, demand the center of the circle, throw his boxing, feint, move his head, and he was doing that flawlessly. And he was throwing combinations, and he was landing. And David Onama was honestly not really putting up much of an output. He was just on the defense. And when he tried to counter, he got countered the counter. He got cracked, and down goes Onama. And it was a little sad because if I did if you've listened to this pod for the past few years, I've always talked highly of David Onama, and I still think he's a beast, and he's always in fun fights. He just got cracked early, and it happens. It happens. So I'm excited for what's next for him. For Steve Garcia, not the best call out. Big moment for you, bud, but you call out a 55er, and his reasoning made sense. He wanted Max for the BMF, and he went on Ariel the next day and kind of defended that and what it means to be a BMF and why he resembles that. And I could be sold, but at the same time, Max is worried about 55 and where is it going to get me a belt? And maybe that BMF will be on the line, but versus Charles Oliveira, unfortunately, not Steve Garcia. And plus, Steve, you should fight one of these guys ranked ahead of you. There's so many fun guys in this division. A few were thrown at him again on that Ariel Helwani show. I'm referencing that show a lot, but it's Ariel, that's the GOAT. But he was asked about all these different guys, and it seems like most people are matched up. So this Max call out was him shooting for the stars. In respect. When you get the opportunity for shoot, you gotta aim high, and that he did. But he also won, so respect to you, Steve. The next fight is going to be bigger. It's going to be better. I would love Arnold Allen was thrown at him in that interview, and that's a fight I would love to see. Although it sounds like Arnold Allen is going to be booked against Gene Silva, from what I've been seeing on Twitter today, and that's a sweet fucking fight. A little bit of a quick turnaround for Gene, who just got like elbow KO'd like not too long ago in September, I think. But that's a sweet fight. Arnold Allen has kind of been collecting dust for a little bit, definitely training, but not really active on a big stage. So this is a big fight, big stage, fresh legs. That's a banger for show, gang. That's a banger for show. All right, that's really all I got from last week's card. Another eye poke controversy that we can kind of add to the list that's been going on recently. But to that, we can now add this gambling scandal to the many things going on in the world of combat. But real quick, this weekend's card is another Apex sleeper, but not as much of a sleeper if you ask me. I think there's some fun names on this card you don't want to miss. The Bonfim Bros are back. Both of them on a card, which is always cool to see how the fighters themselves take that responsibility, because if the first one loses and then the second one loses, it might be because of, or vice versa. If the first one wins and now the second one does, it's a momentum thing. So those things are always a little bit interesting to me, but they're both some fun Brazilian strikers. Other names on the card is Adrian Yanez. We all love Adrian Yanez. The boxing, the KOs. This dude does it, man. He's always in fun fights. CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan, the England striker, who's very promising. And this is kind of like the fights to gain momentum, gain steam, and hopefully make a crack in the welterweight division. These are the ones right here. Ricky Simon, he's been a part of this division for the whole decade. It feels like he finds himself a little bit outside the top 15, I believe, currently. But he's always in fun fights. You cannot show me a Ricky Simon fight. There isn't many boring Ricky Simon fights, and I don't anticipate this weekend's being one. But never in a boring fight. There is no stranger. Matt Schnell's another one who's on this card, who's always religiously in bangers. So that's fun to see. What else we got? Yeah. It's actually Randy Brown, of course. He's in the main event against one of the Bonfims. Randy Brown is the man. He's very tall for the division, so he's always fun to see how guys respond to length. And he usually knows how to use that distance. And his last one, he got the KO in dramatic fashion. And he knocked out Dalby, I believe the gentleman's name. And that's the only guy who beat the Bonfim he's fighting. So you're doing MMA math, Randy Brown should win. But on the contrary, if the Bonfim wins, he's amending that loss. The only loss he has on his record. So kind of a big fight, and it's headlining the Apex hashtag Get Us Out of the Apex. But it continues. It continues. A sleepy card, a sleepy poopy stinky. I hinted at it at the top of the show, but Tank versus Jake Paul felt like a circus show. It felt like a fight that would never happen. Another domestic abuse thing for Tank. And I don't really know enough to speak on it, but it just seems like, again, you smacked another girl of yours, another one. And it could be alleged, it could be all false, but this is just the story that's going around. And since he's pulled out of the fight versus Jake, and now Jake's actively searching for replacements, and mind you, believe this fight was supposed to happen in November. Here we are in November. They're hunting for an alternative. And they called none other than Francis Ngannou. For what? Just think about that size discrepancy. You go from Gervonta Davis, who is a 130-pound world champion, to the MMA undisputed UFC heavyweight champion, who if you've ever looked at the dude, is like humongous. And Jake Paul himself is he's not a lightweight. He is at 130. He's closer to Francis than he is Tank in size, but he's also much smaller than Francis. Height, size, definition, and I guess definition and size that could do more harm for you than well in the boxing ring. But at the same time, it's Francis fucking Ngannou, who we've watched kill people for the past decade, and that's the guy you want to fight. Yeah, he got knocked out, but that's AJ. That's AJ. And I know I love to poke fun at AJ. It's Joshua's favorite boxer. Yeah, la da da. But that's still a world-class fighter. You don't just walk into a sport and fight a guy at that level and think you're just going to walk in the park and beat him. And that's unfortunately what happened to Francis. But Jake Paul, that's easy work. And initially, Francis's response to it was like, bud, although you do deserve a whooping for what you did to Uncle Mike. Great response. And then Jake clapped back, and then Francis was like, be careful now, boy. Be careful, boy. And I'm like, yes, Francis, let him know to be careful, because it can get real dangerous. I don't want to see that fight for Jake. I don't. I would love it for Francis. You get paid big, and hopefully you smash this guy's head in. But if you're Jake and you somehow pull this off, if you somehow contact Floyd and figure out what's the master game plan on how to evade and run for 12 or 10 rounds, whatever this is, and you beat Francis on points, that would crush me. That would crush me because Francis is huge. He's a lot younger than the other MMA guys that Jake's taken on. He's more active than the other guys Jake's taken on. Like there's all these things pointing in the direction of Francis, who hasn't been the most active the past few years, and I understand he's now in boxing and his son passing, so he's kind of just not really active, and rightfully so. But I don't want to see that for Jake. I would love it for Francis. I hope he jumps in the circus and he gets a big payday and he punches his head in, because that'd be great. We can finally get an end to this fiasco. Jake can be humbled finally, and it can be a beautiful world. It can be a beautiful world. He can go to promoting women's boxing, which he does a fantastic job on, do the boxing fundraisers and charities. That he does awesome work there. Stay there, bud. You don't got to fight. Just put on big fights. Be a promoter. Go sit next to Eddie Hearn and Dana White. Go sit next to those guys. You don't got to fight. He also sent contracts to Nate Diaz, I think, was on there. Darren Till was on there. If he does fight Darren Till, that'd be sweet. That's a guy who has momentum. He's proven he's good at boxing. Rockhold is still looking for his chin. Still, that'd be sweet. To me, it really does make no sense to go from Tank to Ngannou. It just goes to show you the circus that we're living in, and that is the Jake Paul boxing era. It's a fiasco, and whatever it's going to turn out to be, it'll probably be massive, and it'll probably be on Netflix, and it'll probably be the most talked about thing in the world and in boxing. And I'll probably get on here and talk about it just because that's what's going on and popular at the moment. And it kind of is what it is. It kind of is what it is. So I hope, Francis, you wake up one morning and decide, you know what, let's just take it. Let's just take this guy. Let's do it. Let's put a dump to his rally and just put some respect on the sport again. Let's do that. Let's do that. Staying in the world of boxing, there was a face-off between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. this week. It was like a face-off video on DAZN's YouTube channel that I see, and boy, oh boy, am I excited for their bout. I think it is November 15th, which is not this Saturday, the following Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. Boy, oh boy, am I excited for these two to get back in there. Not only because of how exciting their first fight is, but these two are still talking shit, and it's still entertaining. It's still like Chris Eubank is preaching. Both of these kids were raised rich, private schools and this, and Conor Benn seems a lot more humble, while Chris is a lot more, Eubank is a lot more like fancy and elegant and talks with bigger words. And he just, Ben clowns on that. And it's just back and forth. And I urge you to go watch that video. And if you haven't, go watch their first fight as well, because that was an absolute classic. But if you're a fan of technical boxing, that ain't the fight for you. That's more of like whose balls are bigger, macho man. I'm gonna slug and punch with you and stand in the pocket, which some of the funnest shit ever, for me at least. Some of the funnest boxing you could ever watch. And that fight itself was amazing. So I definitely urge you to go check that out. And it's fun to see, man. It's fun to see. It's real evident that those two guys fucking hate each other. And their dads have history, and it's lovely. It's lovely for boxing. That story is so fun. And the size discrepancy, Eubank coming down, Ben coming up, just to meet at this weight, it's like storybook. And we're getting another one. If Eubank wins this and this rivalry, 2-0, good night, Ben. Go get a world title now. But if Ben goes out there and wins, if he KOs Eubank, makes it more impressive than their first one, I'm smelling trilogy. Honestly, no matter how Ben wins, if Ben wins, I'm smelling trilogy. I'm smelling it. It's smelling real loud and real fun. So let's make that happen. A few last things. Dirty boxing event last weekend took place. The second MMA fight of the the wrestling great Gabriel Stevenson, 15-second KO. Yeah, kind of is what it is. He had a sweet kind of, the most impressive part was after the KO, he fully cleared the top rope, cleared it, just full lunge, hung, cleared it completely. That was the most impressive thing. Dirty boxing, I'm kind of wondering their matchmaking and who these guys are finding. They're just kind of putting out flyers, at the bottom of flyers where it has like the rip a phone number thing, if that's how they're recruiting or what they're doing. But the talent that they're matching up against these bigger names is real shit. Brian Battle, another moment, co-main event, sweet KO. The dude was on his knees like, oh, bang, good night, son. The most standout moment for me, aside from that bang, was his mic presence. He got on the mic and he had a really great post-fight interview and he let his heart out, and that was, for me, was sweet. And he's talked about that the God doesn't give nobody a burden that they can't hold, and it doesn't get easier, but their legs get stronger, and it's just really motivating. So it's cool to see a guy like that who had his struggles with the weight, 2 missed weights, gets cut, and since he's fought twice, won twice by KO, and the matchmaking is questionable, yes, but he's still making weight, he's still showing up, he's being professional, he's getting the victories, and it's really no question. And I think that Mick Maynard or somebody in the UFC was in the front row, hopefully watching both Gable and Brian Battle to sign them both, but definitely Brian at least. So let's get him back in the UFC. That dude is way too good to be roaming around, dirty boxing, PF. Like he shouldn't go nowhere else except for the UFC and chasing the world champion, because I'm a fan of Brian Battle. I think the dude is wicked good. The Pooh Bear, now the Butcher. He was once a fat kid, now a skinny kid. I'm in on Brian Battle, and I've been in. So I hope the UFC is listening and they bring him back and they're watching the destruction he's put through the past 2 guys lately, and twice in like a few months. So let's go, Brian. Lastly, Dominick Cruz dropped a podcast, and I fucking love it. I love when fighters get on and kind of tap into the creative, especially post-career. I wish more guys would do it actively while they're in their career, because of their stories that they could tell on these podcasts. I feel like that'll make for the better content, just virality, people like that sort of shit. But also, like 10 years from now, you can always look back on these. They don't even need to be on the internet necessarily, but you can always look back and this was your fight camp and this is the things we did and this is this memory and this. I think podcasts are great, not only because I do one and you're listening to one and I'm talking in one, but their ability, it's like a moment in time. And if it's done correctly, it's an awesome hang. And yeah, so again, I love to see fighters tapping into this. Dominick Cruz is the latest one. He had Uriah Faber as the first guest, and it could be no more perfect. Uriah and him rival for years. They had so much smoke, hated each other through the WEC and now through the UFC, and now these guys are both old heads talking shit on a podcast. So I'm thrilled to see. Congrats to Dom. And yeah, more of that. If you're a fighter and you just so happen to be listening to this and you're interested in starting a pod, hit your boy up. We can definitely make that happen, and I can show you some creative stuff, and you can show me some fight stuff. We can make this world go round. All right, I leave you with that. I'll end the show here. That's everything I had. What a week in MMA controversy has been. If you made it to this part of the podcast, I greatly appreciate the support I got on the last episode, and the messages I've been receiving. I really appreciate it. I know people haven't gone away, which is all the love, and neither did I. So here we are, and we're going to keep cracking on this. But thank you. It means the world. Thank you for being here, and to the moon we go.